You finish a long day, open a streaming app, scroll past hundreds of choices, and play an episode you already know by heart. You know the joke before it lands and the conflict before it resolves, yet your shoulders drop the moment the opening music begins. If you are among people who return to the same shows, ask what this experience is responding to and what would make it more useful. That question opens a better conversation than another quick judgment about your personality. People sometimes reduce rewatching familiar shows to being boring, stuck, or unwilling to try anything new. That conclusion is too small to explain the experience. A familiar story can offer predictability when the rest of the day has demanded too many decisions. The appeal may be less about the episode itself and more about knowing exactly what your nervous system is about to receive. The behavior can make sense without being ideal, and understanding its purpose does not excuse every consequence. There is no single personality type behind rewatching familiar shows. Temperament, learning, stress, relationships, culture, and practical circumstances can combine in different proportions. Treat this explanation as a framework, not a diagnosis, and keep only what matches the evidence of your life. Start with one possible mechanism. Predictability removes suspense, so your attention does not have to scan for emotional surprises. Hold this first explanation lightly and compare it with what your body choices and energy actually do. Compare this first clue across several situations before deciding what it means. Watch how that looks in a workday. After a day of Slack messages and small emergencies, the old sitcom asks nothing from you except that you press play. In the first scene, the need beneath the behavior matters more than how the behavior looks from outside. Read the first scene through need, timing, and aftermath rather than appearance. A second layer is easy to miss. Familiar characters can create a low-demand sense of company without requiring you to perform, reply, or explain your mood. The second explanation becomes useful only when the same conditions repeatedly produce a similar response. Use the second clue only if it predicts more than one response. The experience becomes clearer in private. In a hotel room or unfamiliar apartment, the same voices can make the space feel less strange. The private scene reveals whether the response brings genuine recovery or merely delays discomfort. Use the private example to compare real recovery with delayed discomfort. The third piece concerns attention. Nostalgia can reconnect an episode with an earlier room season or version of you that felt simpler. For the third explanation, distinguish what you observed from the meaning you assigned afterward. Keep observation and interpretation separate while testing the third clue. Social situations add another clue. You may quote a line before the actor says it, and that tiny moment of mastery can feel grounding. The social scene shows what happens when belonging, visibility, or another person's expectations enter the equation. Let the social example reveal the extra weight of belonging and visibility. Another part appears under pressure. A known ending lets you experience emotion with a safety rail because you already know how intense the ride becomes. This fourth possibility matters most when pressure changes the intensity, timing, or cost of the response. Pressure is the comparison point for the fourth clue. Now place the same response inside a stressful week. During a stressful week, you might repeat only the gentlest episodes and skip the ones that carry too much tension. The stressful week example separates a stable preference from a temporary response to depleted capacity. Use the stressful example to check whether depleted capacity changes the response. A final mechanism helps explain repetition. When decision fatigue is high, choosing a known episode saves the effort of evaluating another trailer plot and cast. The fifth explanation should increase choice. Discard it if it only supplies a more sophisticated insult. A useful fifth clue creates options instead of another fixed identity. One final scene separates a trait from a trap. A friend may tease you for never starting the popular new series while missing that novelty is not what you need that night. The final scene asks whether the behavior remains flexible when circumstances, energy, or relationships change. Let the final example test whether choice remains available as circumstances change. To make the rewatching pattern more precise, compare three conditions: a rested day, a depleted day, and a day spent with people who feel safe. Notice whether the response changes in speed, intensity, or cost. If it shifts with context, the context belongs in the explanation. That comparison prevents one difficult moment from becoming a permanent identity. Look for a counterexample to rewatching as carefully as you look for confirmation. Remember a time when the usual response did not happen, happened less strongly, or ended sooner. Ask what was different about preparation, energy, environment, expectations, and support. A counterexample reveals the conditions that make greater choice possible. The hidden cost of rewatching deserves equal honesty. Comfort becomes limiting only when the replay repeatedly steals. Sleep replaces relationships you want or keeps you from facing a problem that still needs attention. Preserve whatever the response protects, connects, restores, or clarifies. Change the portion, reducing freedom, straining trust, or moving you farther from what you value. Start by observing the pattern. Before pressing play, ask whether you need rest company nostalgia or escape. The answer changes how you use the show. A second step is practical. Turn the episode into intentional recovery by pairing it with dinner, a shower stretching, or another act that actually supports you. Third, make the change specific. If autoplay is cutting into sleep, choose the episode in advance and let its ending be the stopping cue. Fourth, make the new response repeatable. Keep comfort without closing the door to novelty by trying one short new episode when your energy is genuinely available. Fifth, use support carefully. Notice your state after watching. Feeling steadier is different from feeling numb, restless, or disappointed with yourself. Sixth, review what actually happened. Drop the embarrassed explanation and simply say that familiar stories help you decompress when your brain is full. Finally, know when more support is needed. If the show has become your only reliable refuge, add another form of support rather than forcing yourself to surrender the refuge first. You do not need to turn every comforting habit into a self-improvement project. The better question is whether the habit restores your ability to live or quietly postpones the life you want. Flexibility means choosing among several responses instead of being pushed into one move. An understandable response does not have to become the only move available. Try one 7-day experiment designed for rewatching, but do not repeat a generic ritual every day. Choose one relevant action, use it in a real situation, and record the outcome. Keep revise or discard the experiment according to evidence rather than guilt. The next time the opening theme begins, notice what happens in your body. Maybe the episode is not proof that your world has become small. Maybe it is a familiar doorway back to enough calm that tomorrow can feel possible again. The goal is not a new label. It is enough understanding and flexibility to make a more deliberate next choice.